Um, well, I'm not going to take a long time, but just wanted to welcome everyone. And we just got back from 79th Street. As Senator Collins was there, Carlos Nelson was there, Alderman Moore was there. And I can't tell you how real this all feels, given the momentum that I see with being able to see the city support through the CARES Act, the Auburn Gresham Healthy Hub on 79th Street, which will be the first significant rehab of its kind, and a real first demonstration of what we mean by doing kind of catalytic redevelopment on these corridors. I think it's also fitting to imagine that in addition to the Auburn Gresham's Healthy Hub, which is a $13 million plus investment, just 2 blocks, less than 2 blocks away, you had the Metra reimagining the Metra station again with all of Senator Collins and the partners with the aldermen's effort to make that a reality. And you just can begin to see, you can see what that means when we start to look at an entire geography and how one investment feeds off of another, So the work that we're doing today to make sure that all publicly held property is contributing to the transformation of that area is really foundational. And so this is a very, very different way of working in neighborhoods. It is incremental and it does need real investments, one parcel at a time. But in the end, we want to know what the overarching vision is for the entire area. And we want to market it. We want to promote it in a way that builds capacity so that you don't need a mega developer to come in and do this for you. You can have a whole constellation of community developers who can take on one piece or another piece or another. And that this work that we're doing in these workshops is basically going to set the vision for what we as a community see the future of Auburn Gresham being of 79th and Holstead. So for those of you who haven't participated or the city hasn't invited this type of broad cross-section of folks in to see how we're going to catalyze this initiative, hopefully this will give you a glimpse into the kind of preparatory work that's necessary to have a kind of sustained development scenario. So I'm just going to sit back and listen. And my hope is very soon you will start to see how the work that you're doing today, together with our partners at CCAC and the community organizations on this call, mark my word, you will remember the things that come out of this workshop as being foundational to the work that you will see happening in the upcoming years. So I'm just grateful to the teams that we've been able to assemble. We now have a Southeast team, and then I'm going to turn it over to them and let them walk us through this process. And I just encourage you to enjoy it, be frank and honest about your vision and your response to the things that we'll be showing you, because this is the process of making the framework that will guide the community. So thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Patrick.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Vision Workshop for Auburn Gresham in the 79th Street Corridor. Thank you, David, for loading up that slideshow. I cannot echo better than what the Commissioner stated in regards to what we're all excited about seeing in this community. We've had a couple roundtables. We've discussed and socialized some of the concepts and ideas and heard from the community going back to years. But in this new initiative, we started our process in December with our kickoff at Kennedy King College and the Auburn, Gresham, and Englewood communities. And those of you that were there hopefully remember the excitement that was on that day. And here we are today with our first step in actually seeing some concepts of what development could actually look like in this community. You will see today that we are going to be really focused in on smart development, smart ideas, and we have, I think, what is a very smart team joining us today that have been in partnership with the Department of Planning and Development and the Alderman's Office and the stakeholder group. So as you can see, we have some folks here that we want to introduce. Let me go and do some of that quickly from the city side, and I will let Kelly O'Brien, who is the executive director of the Chicago Central Area Committee, introduce herself as well as her team. But you've heard from our commissioner, Maurice Cox, new to Chicago, and he brings a lot of experience and a keen eye for design to our city. Our deputy commissioner is Jim Harbin. I don't know if he's on this call right now, but he is leading our effort in all of the 12 corridors. And our lead planner for this area is Lisa Washington. All of us were at the press conference this morning. Again, like the commissioner said, what a great day for the ward, a great day for the city. I am the project manager assigned to Auburn Gresham, and it is my joy to be working with you all on this endeavor to bring, catalytic development to the community. So with that, I will let Kelly take over for a few seconds and introduce her team and the professional team that is working with us. Yeah, you're gonna unmute.
Okay, so thank you, Patrick, and greetings to everybody. My name is Kelly O'Brien, and I am the Executive Director of the Chicago Central Area Committee, CCAC. I believe that many of the community partners are familiar with this team because we've had stakeholder calls. But if you're not familiar with our group, it's a 64-year-old civic group that's focused on the planning and development of Chicago. And I'm so proud of this organization and its members. We've really been at the forefront of positioning the city to be the global destination that it is today. And a few years back, there was a decision among leadership to expand our focus into the neighborhoods. And last summer, summer of 2019, we published a white paper titled A Central City Strategy for All of Chicago. Chris Hall, maybe you could quickly wave. Chris helped lead this white paper. We had more than 60 members participate in that effort. And the first actionable project out of that white paper was an initiative that we called the Corridor Revitalization Initiative. And we worked in partnership with World Business Chicago, and we were asked to work in 5 different neighborhoods in the South and West Side. And our work is on our CCAC website if you have any interest in learning more about that. And we were really honored when Commissioner Cox approached our executive board and asked that our members assist his very talented team and work on 3 specific areas within Invest Southwest. And Auburn Gresham, I just have to say, has a special place in my heart. And I want to do a shout out to Principal Rawls. My father is a Leo man and a very close member of our family. George O'Grady is in the Hall of Fame at Leo. So it's an area that we know well and have stayed active with. So we have a terrific team that I want to allow to be introduced, but I just really want to say that not only am I so grateful to this team and for the community folks to understand that all the members of the team signed agreements that they will not professionally go after opportunities in this RFP. So this is a 100% pro bono work that they are doing. And they're working early in the morning, late at night, and on weekends. But I also want to give a great shout out to the DPD folks that are on this call and that are working on this effort. The public servant attitude is stellar. I mean, the commitment and the passion to the city and to this neighborhood is something that we really need to step back and say, wow, and say thank you. So I want to express my gratitude for being able to work with such talented, dedicated people. So with that, I'd like to hand it off to one of the team leads, David Scully, who I think many of you also know. So David, if you want to say a quick hello, and then maybe just we can, as a team, just keep giving, announcing another member to say, raise their hand and say hi. So David?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I'll keep this short. Hey, everybody. My name is David Scully. For those who don't know me, I am, from Chicago. I'm an urban designer at SOM, and I'm leading this effort. Actually, Auburn Gresham is pretty special to me. I grew up half in South Shore, half in Auburn Gresham, and my mom still lives across the street from Foster Park Elementary School. So know a lot of Leo, friends who went to Leo and friends who went to Calumet. So excited to be here. I'll pass it to Tiara to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Tiara Hughes. I'm also an urban designer with SOM. I am a Southside resident, transplant from St. Louis, and I'm super, super excited to be a part of this team and the catalytic development to come. Thank you.
All right, I'll pass it to Chris Hall.
I'm Chris Hall. I'm also with SOM, and I was lucky enough to work with Carlos and some other colleagues a couple of years ago, looking at 79th and Halstead area. So it's good to be involved again. I'll hand off to Paul Bamson.
Hello everyone, my name is Paul Bamson. I'm a junior urban designer at SOM. Glad to be on the team.
All right, thanks, guys. As you can see, we have a number of professionals working with us here. But before we go to our agenda, I just want to give an opportunity to the aldermen who are both on the line with us this evening to greet the
Patrick,
ward and say hello.
I'm sorry, we have a few other team members. Just
Sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
really quickly. Diane?
Yes, I'm Diane Legg, architect, landscape architect, and planner, vice president of Callison RTCal. Worked with the city of Chicago for 24 years with my own woman-owned business. So I'm so excited to be back after a dozen years away in Asia.
Thank you, Diane. Thomas McElroy?
I'm Mr. McElroy from Level 1 Global Solutions. Have done work with a few of you all here on this call. Proud member of CCAC for quite a bit. My role will be to listen to what everyone is saying and figure out the technology implications of what will be said and how we can make sure that that's properly infused into this development.
Thank you. Joe Wallace?
Again, hello everyone. This is Joe Wallace with Pradium Valuation Group, also a fellow Southsider. So very proud of that, and extremely happy to be on this team and hoping to contribute as we listen to everybody on the call.
Thank you. Is Greg Hummel on the call? Greg Hummel? Okay. Anybody that I missed from CCAC? Okay, thank you for that opportunity, and thank you, Alderman, for your patience. Patrick?
Thank you. Alderman Moore, do you want to impart some words on us before we begin?
Oh, just welcome everybody and let's get to work. That's all. Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you. Alderman Brookins? Does Alderman Brookins want to say anything before we begin? Okay. James? Okay. So,
hey, what's going on?
You want to, is the Alderman here? I saw him on the line. Does he want to say anything, or do you want to speak on his behalf?
Yeah, he's on the line. No, basically, this is going to be an exciting time to see the growth of 79th Street. Looking forward to it.
Okay, thanks, James. All right, thank you, Alderman.
Hey man, how you feeling, man?
All right. So looking at the agenda, we've done our introductions. We're going to be talking about a few things today. We're going to be aligning with community aspirations. We're going to talk about what we've seen, what we've heard to date. Then we're going to talk about understanding the opportunity. We're going to look at what lies ahead of us here in regards to rebuilding and revitalizing this community. We're going to break out in discussion groups and talk about concepts for a catalytic corridor site. Now we'll be looking at designs and massings and talking about some design schemes for what the future of this particular corridor could look like. And then we're going to close out by regrouping, coming out those rooms and recapping what we learned, and then we'll schedule and go on to our future schedule. So next screen. Next screen. Okay, so why are we here? Okay, we're here primarily to look at the 79th Street and Halsted corridor, but our feature site is the 79th and Halsted community area right here, where we're looking at 838 West 79th Street, which is across the street from the Healthy Lifestyle Hub that we saw today at the press conference. So we're going to talk about that RFP site and the preparations that go into that. We're going to talk about embedding some of the community objectives and aspirations that we've heard about since December from this very community, and looking at how do we socialize some of those ideals into the RFP that we're going to be releasing come late summer. And our overall goal here is to raise the visibility of 79th Street and Halsted. We really want to increase the overall investment potential. And you'll notice today that we are going to really focus our attention on this particular corridor as it has the most investments that we think we can build upon. And this we really expect will set the stage for not only future RFPs, but also future developer-driven projects, as well as bringing catalytic and investment to this community. And lastly, the time frame for our city RFP release, again, will be late summer, targeting August of this year. Next screen. All right, the context. As you know, the city has divided our city into planning regions. We're in the Southeast region. This is a DPD-led process. As you may have heard, we're on a similar time frame for sites that we are looking at releasing requests for proposals in the communities of Englewood as well as Austin. As you know, again, this is part of our overall initiative in the Invest Southwest, and we are being supported in this effort at this time by the Chicago Central Area Committee, members supporting the city pro bono with design and marketing advice, and the professional team at Skidmore, Owens, and Merrill. And we're going to be building on recent initiatives that this organization has led in the recent past. All right, so we've met the team already from DPD, and I would be remiss if I failed to mention Gerardo Garcia, who is the department's lead designer and point person in bringing the professional teams to the department, and has worked very closely with you all and bringing you all to the table. So sorry about that, Gerardo. I want to make sure I highlight you here, though. Thank you for your support and your leadership on this endeavor. CCAC and SOM are going to be talking about design inputs and other things, but here is the team. The SOM, Callison RTKL, we're getting our market and development advice from Fifth Field Companies, Pradium Valuation, and Brian Cave, Layton, and Paisner. And you heard already from Mr. McElroy, our tech is coming from Level 1 Global Solutions. So this is the team that is helping us to really bring a professional perspective to this initiative and this opportunity. Next slide. All right, so when we release this RFP, who are we looking for? Who are the universe of respondents that we would love to hear from? We would love to hear from private developers who obviously can meet the community objectives. We are really focused on really trying to drive a local developer from the community situation. We really want to see the community step up, take this opportunity on, and hopefully drive a local project here. We're also looking at the nonprofit community, as well as partnerships and joint ventures, to name a few. So we really want to drive local development, hopefully get people from the community, because obviously we know that you know what are the best fits for this corridor. Next slide. So our timeline, as you can see, we have started a robust round of community engagement sessions where we have engaged you, talked to you, heard from you, taken copious notes, and really are putting your input into these plans. We are meeting monthly, and we have set that schedule already. Our first developer RFP will be released again in August, and then come this fall, we will be submitting the RFPs to the community for review and analysis. Again, the commissioner, the city, the mayor, this initiative, we have set out to really engage the community. We want you all to be a part of this process, and you can see here that that is a key deliverable goal that we are going to strive to meet. Next slide. Next slide. All right, so forgive me if I'm going to read here, so just bear with me. We are Auburn Gresham. This is a statement that we thought really was impactful. We are Auburn Gresham, a predominantly African-American community, rich with history, culture, and aspirations. We will achieve the hopes and dreams of our community and support our families, our youth, and our elderly residents in their effort to live high-quality, richly fulfilled lives. We will provide the community with necessary healthcare, housing, educational opportunities, business development, resources, public safety support, and other necessities of life to create a holistic and vibrant community. I want you all to really kind of meditate on that theme right there, because that is what it's all about. We really want to know how we can help, and I think this kind of captures the essence of this rich neighborhood. We know that it's a residential, neighborhood with a strong homeownership component. We've got 70 active block clubs who the alderman today shouted out today, very strong connections. The faith-based institutions are very rich in this neighborhood. Strong leadership, strong police presence with our CAPS program. And this is a very vibrant and very strong housing stock. And attractive residential streets. And so that makes our work really much more focused on the commercial corridor, because this is a very active, stable rooftop community. And so, in the old mindset where residential drives retail, that is the missing component. That is why we're here. And I think we've got the right team to help bridge the gap there. Next slide. All right. So what we've heard so far from December, the primary goals from what we've heard from stakeholders and community residents and interested parties was that we really need strong retail buildings with residential, which is mixed use development. We need more sit-down restaurants. We need more entertainment venues. We need grocery and other shopping opportunities. We need community festivals, public art. We need activities for young children and adults. The community is also looking for improved care of vacant buildings and abandoned lots. That's been an issue for a long time in a lot of our neighborhoods. The main concerns, though, are we have maybe too many abundance of liquor stores and bars. We have a high concentration of cell phone stores and currency exchanges. We've also heard from the community regarding public safety, loitering around vacant lots, and those kinds of loitering activities. We have crime near abandoned buildings. And we also have the dearth and lack of nearby shopping. And so we notice that a lot of folks are going out of this ward, out of this zip code, out of these neighborhoods and going to other areas to shop and spend money. Next slide. And here you can see some of the community assets that we hope to be building off of. I don't know if everyone can see the map or the screen really clearly, but the 79th Street corridor, as you can see, has a few assets here. The Halsted corridor has a few assets, but overall in the community, I think we have a good building block of things that we can build off of. Obviously, we have Simeon, we have the new metro station coming, we have some elementary schools, but we do need to drive the retail back to this corridor, back to this community, to take advantage of the rich rooftop community that deserves to have retail and commercial spots and destinations in their own community. So, but we think we have a good building block set of institutions and stakeholders here that can make this, you know, a good place for us to start. Next slide. Okay, key demographics. So the population as of last count, I think this is 2015 data from CMAP. We have 46,278 people with a median age of 39, almost 40 years old. We have 17,000 households, of which 1/3 of the employed in those households are earning less than 25,000. So where we have a younger demographic, we still need to deliver quality jobs and really improve that quotient so that we can actually provide better retail for those folks to spend their dollars here. The average household size is just about 3. So we also have the percentage of residents working in a number of different fields, healthcare being number 1, and our healthy hub will hope to increase that number. Retail, trade, education, and transportation are also high areas where we see a concentration of those who do have employment in this community work in those fields. And so I think this is a half glass full situation here with the median age. We have a lot more room to grow. And so I think we can really bring better demographics and better information to this neighborhood with these smart developments. Next slide. Housing market. Like I said before, this is a strong multi-unit stock community, rooftop community. Actually one of the best on the south side. We have apartments and condos and 50+ unit buildings that could and might provide more diversity. But we also have a concentration of a high vacancy rate right around the cluster area of our work. And so this is why we need to increase density in this key commercial node here on 79th and Halsted going east as well as north and south, east and west. As you can see, higher concentration is single family, but again, we also have multi-unit buildings and condominium owners in this community as well. Next slide. Okay, so we've gotten some of our retail market profile information from Esri, and what we have found is that there is a good mix of married couples, single parents, and grandparents. So we've got that intergenerational living also present in this community, but this is a community that is very strong on foundation. They attend church, they serve on church boards, they work with boards of churches and do fundraising projects. They participate in civic activities. Probably a lot of them are members of block clubs and or the Greater Auburn Gresham Development Corp. They spend money on their families. So this is a very active community, and credit should go out to the local leadership of this neighborhood to make sure that they've engaged folks in a we concept. We have a number of different mix of family types who do shop at wholesale clubs and accessible grocery stores. Again, we want to bring some of those grocery stores and keep them in this zip code, this corridor, this ward. Again, the data showed that we have a younger singles and smaller family mix. So we have a need for some of those families that will purchase children's products, clothing, grocery stores. And so you see the need for strong retail in this community. Next slide. All right. Recent and future developments. So despite all that, Auburn Gresham has seen a lot of recent development in the last 10 or so years. Recently completed developments include the Veterans New Beginnings Building, Senior Village of Auburn Gresham, and the Naomi and Sylvester Smith Senior Living. All great projects, all have delivered on their goals to bring new housing to the community. And what's on the whiteboard here is the Healthy Hub at 839 West 79th Street that we saw today. Calumet High School is going to be an adaptive reuse of that building. That's going to be a great project whenever we find a developer for that. And then also there is a proposed renewable energy and urban farming campus, which is going to bring jobs to the community and located not too far from the 839 building, also part of the Pritzker-Traubert Prize application, of which we were able to announce a CARES Act funding for $4 million to close the gap on the 839 component. So we're excited to be part of these projects, both recently and proposed. And so you know here that the city is committed to making sure that this community is redeveloped in a proper fashion. Next slide. Okay, understanding the opportunity. Is this SON?
This is me. I was gonna.
So I'm pleased and proud to turn over the slide deck here to David Scully, who introduced himself earlier as an urban designer with Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, and we're happy to have him now take us through. David, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. So I think, knowing all of that, we start to just look at what we have, and it was great to talk to Carlos and his team, and one of the things that really stuck from that conversation was this idea of, walkable, livable, workable community. So how do we, sort of merge these three, sort of ideas and start to really create an opportunity for really a fantastic and holistic redevelopment of a community corridor. There's a lot of opportunity and ways that we can start to build a momentum on this. And, we've been doing it, here in the city of Chicago as well as other places. But, as the commissioner mentioned, this idea of marketing the opportunities. So really using, sort of this effort to continue to build on all the work that has been done and really come with really a cohesive idea of how we can, how folks can participate in this corridor and how it can facilitate upward mobility within the community and economic mobility. So this is just, sort of a list of some of the things that could happen: small scale investment, pop-up activities, small format retail, or some things that could happen sort of in the near term. But then in the long term, when we start to get spaces that will, allow for these sort of uses around health and wellness that can build off of the 839 project, looking at job training, arts and culture, continue to bring in a diversity of housing types to continue to bring more product that will be attractive to singles and other users, as well as workshop and office space for entrepreneurs that want to locate along the boulevard, so that it is really a refined mix of uses that can happen along the street and along Auburn Gresham. So some of the key ideas, as mentioned, 79th Street is really could be really a unique main street in the neighborhood. I mean, understanding that there are others, of course. There's, kind of the shopping centers on 87th and 83rd. There's other shopping on 60 or 76 and Ashland, and as well as mixed into the community. But this could really be a unique opportunity for a real mixed-use Main Street, which could be walkable and really interesting. Expanding housing choices and affordability. Looking at bringing more activity, more walkable activation into the space. So streetscape and understanding how we can use that to continue to bring that vibrance to the street. Economic mobility and jobs, of course, is a huge one, and we saw on the demographics that there is definitely that need to bring jobs, not just jobs, but jobs that are careers that can provide an economic base for folks to build their families. Recirculating those local dollars within the community so that they come around and continue to kind of build that prosperity among locals. Creatively filling those gaps and the vision and completing the vision that already has been set forth in the various plans, the quality of life plans, the things that Greater Auburn Gresham Development Corporation has been doing, and others. Looking at culture and civic spirit, as well as food and health, and how those can kind of work together holistically. So looking a little bit at just sort of the lay of the land from a retail perspective, you can see there's a series of nodes indicated, and this is from the quality of life plan that was done, that you sort of have these major retail centers at 87th and the Dan Ryan, and also a little bit at 76th and Ashland with the Walmart and the Aldi. And that there is this need that we're working with as a team to figure out, kind of what's maybe the gap. Where's the place that we can start to fill in? And I think we're looking for the data to back that up, and we're working on that. But I think it's kind of from our experience that this is a play around focusing on the experience of the corridor. Like, what does the street feel like, and how to really invite people here, especially with this new metro station. Now that people can, get here from downtown in 2 stops, or from, from further south into the neighborhood, how can we invite them in with restaurants and food, artisan goods, fitness and health and wellness, as well as culture and civic uses that can bring people to the neighborhood, and allow them to have a great experience. So, we highlighted, 10 sites. It's a mix of city-owned property, as well as some buildings that have been recently vacated, and of course the 839 project. So this is highlighting those just so we can kind of get a sense of the lay of the land from that perspective, and what the opportunity sites are currently, as well as highlighting the site number 2, which is, as Patrick mentioned, the potential site that we're looking at for RFP. But one of the things we noticed when we started to map at this scale was that there were these sort of critical intersections that were happening at key transit opportunities. So of course 79th Street is a very active bus line that connects east to west. Halsted is a very active bus line. Ashland is a very active bus line that also has bus TOD corridor, so that we end up with these series of 5-minute walk nodes from Ashland, Racine, Halsted, and then a cluster of nodes that are really the metro station and Vincennes coming together to really provide some activation in that area. And as you can see, it's the metro station is, I think, really going to unlock a lot of value for the area, just because it puts you within 2 stops of downtown, a 20 to 30-minute ride from LaSalle Station. It also connects you back south and southwest. And from that, in starting to also understand the opportunities that Carlos and his group that has been going after the Pritzker Prize are looking at, of course, the Healthy Food Hub, Calumet High School, and how to reactivate that as an anchor, as well as the renewable energy and urban farming campus and the metro station that those, as well as the dearth of sites that are available, really provide a real opportunity, especially at that Halsted and Ashland and 79th Street intersection, in addition to the to the other intersections. And from just looking at all of those opportunities, there's this series of, kind of ways that we can start to activate those sites in the near term, or potentially in a longer fashion, looking at micro retail or pop-up activities, looking at how can we reactivate some of those temporary storefronts, those vacant storefronts as temporary spaces, or potentially full-time reactivation. Looking at those historic assets, like, of course, the 839 project is a great example of this, reactivating a heritage and character building to be of a new use. But also, how can we look at some of those drive-up retail spaces and how those can potentially be not necessarily always redeveloped, but they may want to be reused in some instances. And then, of course, understanding that we do have vacant sites and how those can vary in scales of influence, from a residential infill or shop house typology that may want to have more of a live-work feel to it. It could be a moderate density sort of residential with some active ground floor or cultural or civic spaces, community spaces, as well as larger scale projects that may want to include, housing and library, as has been done, over the across the city. Could be fitness, could also be other opportunities. So there's a way that we can really scale up and understand those densities, and that there is this sort of kit of parts that we can then build and start to apply along the whole corridor. And we look to use this kit, or these sort of types of interventions and opportunities, to then go into focus on a specific node and a couple of specific sites to play out how that could happen. so I think from here, we were planned on breaking out into some smaller groups and just having a conversation, walking through some of those ideas with you guys, and just kind of starting to work together on getting your feedback on what we put together.
Right. Thank you, David. Great presentation. We are going to break out in rooms right now. And so we're going to automatically assign you to rooms. And room 1 is going to go over the first scheme and design concept that SOM and CCAC came up with. And that's going to be moderated by Kimberly Morris, who's on the Southeast Regional Planning Team, and facilitated by Paul Bamson and Christopher Hill. So they'll be in room 1. Room 2 will be looking at the second design concept, and that will be moderated by Luke Mitch, also on the Southeast Regional Planning Team, and facilitated by Tiara Hughes, also on the SOM Architect Team. And room 3 will be the third concept, and I'll moderate that room, and David will be the facilitator. So I'm going to open all rooms right now, and all of those facilitators should have the screen share of the presentation of the last section of slides that feature the design concepts. So let's give it a try and see how it goes. I'm going to open all rooms, and we'll be able to chat. All right, and I wish you all have a great session, and we'll pick this up at, we're going to have 30 minutes for this room. And so we'll come back here about 4:28 or so, and then we'll move to wrap up, do a summary, and then close our presentation for today. Okay, here we go. Did this work? Everybody in the room?
Hi, this is Paul.
Hey, Paul, this is Patrick. I can't get into my room.
You can't get into your room?
Right. So when I did all the assigning of the rooms, I never did see like me on there. And everybody, I've checked with a few people via text. And so the rooms are functioning. Everybody's in their room. And
Okay.
I'm supposed to be in room 3. And so is Alderman Brookins. And then we're the only 2 people, I guess, that are not in a room. So like on the bottom of my screen, I have participants and it only says 2, right?
Okay.
But I don't know how to get in the room myself. So, because I wasn't able to
All right,
select.
so open up the participants screen.
Yep.
And when you're in the participant screen,
We having technical difficulties. I get switched to another room.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
we all
You
got
always
switched
cut
back.
Chip off, by the way. Chip seems to be the one always that gets cut off.
I'm not taking it personally. That's fine.
No, thank you, everyone. As you know, that session was 32 minutes long, and so we appreciate
Well,
it.
Chip was asking a question. I think he was asking Carlos a question. We need to
All right, so let's go ahead and let Chip
finalize that.
Yeah, let's let Chip ask that question and close it out right now.
Yeah, we can. I don't want to take up everyone's time with the question. We were just talking a lot about the height and density of the building directly across the street from the project, Carlos, that you're working on. We talked about the floors. My question was, instead of talking about the number of floors, if we knew the height of the building that you're working on, we might have a better conversation about the functional height or floors of the building across the street. That's all.
Okay, gotcha. And I don't have the height. You're right. There are 18-foot ceilings on the first floor and 15-foot ceilings on the upper 3 floors. So I guess we do the arithmetic, and there you have it. So that's a good point, Chip.
And then also even considering East Lake Management buildings on the corner of 79th and Halsted, what's that height? That's critical too, because I think that was comparable to the height what was on the corner of 79th and on the southeast corner. And I think that was the tallest. That was probably the tallest building on that corner, if I'm not mistaken. And so we've had that type of height before. So that's nothing new, and it worked. And so I don't know if that would be in you all's archives, Chip, or not, before you guys tore that building down, when the city tore that building down, the height of that building. But I know East Lake's building may be a good, example of that, because I think that's one of the tallest buildings too. I don't know if yours taller than his or not, Carlos, the 839 building, but we've had some tall buildings in that corridor.
Right.
So you'll get that information to Chip, right, Carlos, what that height is?
We'll do that.
And then,
I'll get to that, Chip.
Right, and Chip, and I don't know if you can find out the height of the building that you all tore down on the southeast corner of 79th Street. That's the city vacant lot now, because that was a pretty tall building too. So I just can't remember.
Yeah, we can try to find this out as planning staff has the conversations moving forward with trying to figure out the RFP specs.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay,
Thanks for answering. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alderman. Thanks, Chip, for your concluding that room in that chat session. So I want to thank you all for your participation. I think, and I'm hopeful that everyone's input was valuable and valued as we talked about, the concepts and plans and designs and answered some key questions. What I'd like to do now is offer an opportunity for each moderator and or facilitator for each of the chat rooms to kind of summarize in about 5 or 6 minutes for each group what their room discussion was about and what were some of the takeaways. And so we'll go first with room number 1, which was moderated by Kimberly Morris and facilitated by Paul Bamson and Chris Hill.
Assuming we was discussing the same things in terms of design.
Kim and or Chris or Paul?
Kimberly, do you want to go ahead? You're on mute right now.
Oh yeah, sorry guys, I was on mute. As we were going, similarly to what you heard Carlos discussing with Chip, we were going through what people felt was an appropriate height, mostly for 79th Street and specifically across the street from the 839 building. So people mostly were saying that there was, people were comfortable with maybe 3 to 4 stories, but that may be the limit. But then some people expressed interest in maybe increasing density and maybe exploring something a little higher. I'm sorry, did I get cut off?
No, Paul's just putting up the graphics for us.
Sorry, I think my internet was kind of tweaking.
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so going through these different concepts, essentially getting people's feedback on how they felt about this staggered type of ground floor retail. People mostly were supportive of ground floor retail, but also thought that potentially live workspaces on that ground floor would be beneficial as well along this corridor. And did you want to jump in with any more ideas, thoughts, Christopher or Paul?
I think that was good. I think you captured it. I think we're good.
Were any of the key questions that you guys discussed in the room hard to address?
I don't think so, no. It was open conversation, so that was good. It's valuable.
Okay, let's go to the second room where Luke Mitch was the moderator and Tiara Hughes was facilitating the discussion. What did you guys discuss, and what were some of the takeaways and key things you guys are going to leave here today with? Tiara, Luke?
Sure, I can jump in, and Tiara and Gerardo, let me know if I'm missing anything here, but you know, some of our keynotes were regarding the fact that folks had a positive response to the idea of maybe a flexible ground floor, and that could be within a given block, perhaps one corner or one portion of the ground floor makes sense as retail or some sort of active use. And maybe some portions of the ground floor could even be residential all the way down to street level. So that could be the case kind of in perpetuity, or it could be flexible over time, so that if ground floors are designed with the correct floor-to-floor height, we could be looking at retail in one portion that could expand eventually throughout the building. And so folks seemed amenable to that as kind of a way of phasing in retail or other services as needed. There was definitely a positive response to the kind of height and facade articulation that we saw in a lot of the precedent photos, referencing that, you know, we need to reflect adjacent heights, but also vary height within a building, vary, you know, the articulation of the facade. There were notes about, you know, needing to reflect community character in terms of building design. While I think contemporary or modern architecture would be supported, it needs to be designed in such a way where it fits the surrounding neighborhood and not just kind of be dropped in as an alien kind of design. And then we just, you know, talked a little bit about a number of other things. You know, how do we think through the convocation center proposal? What does that mean in terms of visibility? Where are there opportunities to increase sidewalk width, especially as adjacent program dictates? And then as we think about parking, how do we address parking? Is it on site within these corridor sites? Is it something off corridor even? And how do we manage that parking? Do we think about meters to help increase turnover in certain kind of high demand areas? Or is it all just kind of free surface parking? So a lot to digest. We didn't really touch on any immediate challenges other than, you know, what Tiara walked us through in terms of the need for incentives and potentially non-public sources of support funding. But Tiara and Gerardo, I don't know if I missed anything there.
No, that was really good, Luke. Thanks.
Thanks, Luke.
Okay, we'll go to the third room. Sounds like you guys had a really good, vibrant conversation. Glad to learn that and hear that. In our third room, David, do you want to start with our summary?
Yeah. So I think, you know, we had a good conversation as well about the first kind of big point that really resonated with me is, like, you know, kind of this idea of really focusing on community and playing up the fact that we do have a very strong community here that has a lot of you know, sort of unique qualities to it. It's very active. So how do we make sure that almost that's really the brand of the neighborhood, or, you know, really kind of brings people here because they may not, you know, kind of know about it. There was talk about, you know, sort of some of the how do we make sure that development is, catalytic, that it can sort of play off of each other, and how to maybe address the stigma of 79th Street, of being on 79th Street, how to, I mean, if you're from Chicago or, not, there is that sort of like, oh, 79th Street, so how do we maybe rebrand it or just start to bring people to 79th Street in a stronger way. And let's see. And I think the last ones were really on, we started to talk a little bit about traffic and how to make sure that 79th Street is walkable and that it is, sort of a place to want to be. So we talked a little bit about, sort of what are some of the issues with maybe truck traffic coming down 79th Street? Are there ways that we can maybe balance that out a little bit and make sure that does feel walkable and connected as a street? And there's, a lot to, I think, dig into to figure that, piece of it out. But I think it's definitely something worth looking at. So I think, if feel free to add in if I missed anything.
Yeah,
Patrick.
I think you did a great job of summarizing our conversation. I will say one thing, and let this be our closing thought, because we're at our end time, and I really appreciate everyone for joining here today. Thank you for the leadership presented on this call from both the professional side and the public side with our aldermen and stakeholders and city staff. But I think the key thing in our group, and Alderman Brookins hit it on the head, is how do we change the stigma of being on 79th Street? And I think that in and of itself is why we're doing this work in the way that we're doing it. Engaging the community, working with professionals, and having the city put its full array of resources to the table so that we can actually change the image of these neighborhoods, 79th Street included. And I think if we have the right types of development concepts and applications and right developers and the right people at the table, I think we can begin to change the stigma of what it is to be on 79th Street and make this place live workplace, workable, walkable, livable, all the themes that we talked about here today, and in the themes that we'll continue to talk about in the future at our next round of meetings. So we'll see you at our next roundtable. Let's all keep that in mind as we close our conversation today. Again, I want to thank everyone for being here, business owners, civic leaders, stakeholders, neighbors, city staff, and anyone else who was here today. I really thank you for your contribution to this conversation, and we'll keep talking and we'll keep working at DPD to make sure that we deliver on the goals of all the plans that we've talked about and the new concepts that we're talking about today. So we're going to end this call, and we'll see you at the next one. Be on the lookout for a future email for our next roundtable, which will be mid-July. And then be on the lookout for our legislative process, where we will be releasing our request for proposal, which we think is the second step. The first step being the Greater Auburn Gresham Development Corp, and they're closing on financing today, and our next steps, which will be the city side. So thank you, good luck, and have a great day. Great evening, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a good one, y'all.
Thank you.
All right, see ya.